Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Paul and Karine on 90 Day Fiancé. Let's get to the show.
I want to start a family.
The U.S.?
Laura?
Yes.
Do you feel that we're ready for that big of a jump in our relationship?
Você sente que estamos prontos para esse grande salto em nosso relacionamento?
Se a gente tiver um filho, a nossa relação vai ser muito mais forte e nós vamos parar de brigar menos.
If we have a child, our relationship will be much stronger and we will stop fighting.
No, no, that is not true. That's a myth. There's a lot of people who say that. Now, are there anecdotal situations, isolated examples where we could point to that happening? For sure. But there's just as many situations where it gets worse. That notion is often put forth of, we have all these fighting, but if we have kids, then he'll calm down and we'll have this beautiful baby we can take care of and we won't fight anymore. No, fighting gets worse empirically, particularly the first couple years after the birth of a child, because having a child is stressful and you depend on each other much more. There's so much more possibility for conflict, and you're tired all the time, and you don't always want to change the diapers, and you don't want to always wake up at 4 a.m. and feed the child. And it's hard to have intimacy when the child is needing to be helped all the time. So there's that. Also, there's postpartum or peripartum anxiety, OCD, depression that can happen to people, not always. But certainly hormones can affect pregnant women around pregnancy that can also complicate things potentially. So no, Karine. Now, there is nothing wrong with Karine saying, I want to get the jump on having kids. I want to get married. I want to have kids. That's my plan in life. Perfectly fine. That's a wonderful goal to have. Now, this conversation is a little interesting because she's basically saying that. She's like, I want to have kids right away. Paul is hesitant and saying, are you sure you want to go that fast? I wish people would take ownership. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for Paul to say something like, oh, okay, you want to have kids. I definitely want to have. Now, so there's a lot of different possibilities of what's going on in the inside of Paul. Maybe he never wants to have kids. And maybe we'll find out in this conversation. Or maybe he wants, so there's two options here. Either he never wants kids, or two, he hasn't thought about it and he was planning on thinking about it later, so he's sort of a deer in headlights right now. Or he definitely wants to have kids, but just he wants to give it a little bit of time. Some people have that. It's like, well, let's get married, let's get settled a few years, let's get financially settled, because they're definitely not financially settled. And then definitely we'll have kids. So I'm guessing it's that third one because that's usually the case. And if it was that, then he could say something like, so, yes, I want to have kids, but here's my plan. And this is what a lot of people don't do on this show, is instead of saying, we're on the same team here, maybe you want to have kids right away, but I want to have kids after these things happen. And here's how I'm planning on getting there. I plan on doing this. I plan on doing, here are the steps. And you lay out the agenda. And it gives, if Karine has to wait a little bit longer to have a kid, at least it gives her an idea of what that timeline is going to be and what they as a couple need to accomplish to get to that place. But a lot of times what people do in Paul's position is they'll just push back and not provide any kind of pathway. So let's see how they do here.
Eu queria ter um filho com o Paul agora. Então, faz com que o Paul ficasse com o compromisso dele.
Me e o Paquito now. Wedding, casamento, muy quero. Niño, niña, muy, muy quero.
Se a gente trabalhar juntos, a gente consegue ter uma família.
If we work together, we can have a family.
Right. So both are right. From his perspective, he is thinking, I want to have more money before I have kids. It's totally fine. She's saying, we can make it work. We don't need more money to make it work. That's true as well. It's all a matter of priorities. Now, I wonder what Paul is thinking on the inside. Does he never want to have kids? Has he just not thought about it yet and he needs some time to think about it? Or does he definitely want kids and he wants kids later? The fact that he hasn't said anything about what is going on for him yet, and maybe he'll get to it, indicates that he is insecure about that, or is not really in touch with what he wants, or maybe he doesn't want kids at all and he wants to obscure that. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out.
You're not going to give up.
Você não vai desistir.
Please. Oh.
So I think that she's being fine. She's just saying, this is my dream in life, and please just come along with me on my dream and we can have this wonderful life. Totally normal request that a lot of people have. Paul, on the other hand, is resistant, but why? Does he know why? Can he communicate why? What's going on there? I wish that he would say something more so she would understand why. Because it really runs the gamut from, I never want to have kids and I'll agree to it because I don't want to lose you. That's one particular situation. To, I just want to wait a couple years to have kids. I wonder if he even knows what's going on for him.
All right. Want to have a baby at some point, and I really want to make Karine happy. But this is all moving a little bit too fast. I just don't know if this is really the right time to bring a child into this world.
Okay, so some people might say, well, Paul, then you should pump the brakes because you need to be on board before you have kids. I've seen a lot of different things. When you actually talk with parents as they make these decisions about whether to have their first child or even their third child, there's sometimes varying levels of motivation in the couple. And you don't always see eye to eye on that. And how do you navigate that situation? There's no hard and fast rule. Generally speaking, you want to be on the same page, at least for the most part. Generally speaking, you don't want to forge ahead with having a kid without being fully on board if you're in Paul's position. Because if you're not fully on board and you run into problems, you might run away from your responsibilities and your love for the child. You might not really bond with the child enough. And certainly there are a lot of people that do that sort of thing. So at this point, I'm not seeing anything overtly, predictably horrible. She wanted to have kids right away, and he's just like, whoa. And then he gives it some thought, and he's like, okay, yes, I want you to be happy. And then in this interview, it's like, yeah, but I have some reservations. But maybe those reservations will go away as time moves forward. I'm guessing if you've watched ahead, you know the answer to those questions, and I don't. Now I do know because I've talked to him on the phone that they did have a child. I don't know at what point they had the child, but I do know that did happen.
We are talking about going and getting married while I'm over here.
No, we weren't talking about that. I never even think about that. We don't even know each other yet.
But I love her very much. She's got a really good heart, and she really seems like she wants to be in this with me, so.
I think you're crazy, really. I really do. You're crazy. I think you should get to know each other a little better. I would work on that first.
So you think it's a bad idea?
So this is often the reaction from the family, right? Is, give us some more time. You're crazy. You don't even know each other. Now, the accusation that they don't know each other, I don't know, that's a little extreme. But the advice about waiting a little bit is potentially sound. If I were in Paul's shoes, I would actually say, you know what? There's no rush. Let's give it some time, maybe even a few years, because you never really know someone until you vet them for a few years. As I always say, think about past relationships you've been in. Just kind of think of the top 3 in your past that ended badly. There was probably a point in the first number of months, maybe years, where you thought, this is the one. This is going to work out. I'm in love. This is great. We should get married. And then the relationship took a turn, and now you look back and think, my God, I dodged a bullet on that one. I'm so glad we didn't get married and have kids together. That would have been a disaster. So why not wait, right? They're both relatively young. She's particularly young, 21 years old, I think. I think he's 30-ish, and maybe a little older, actually. If he went to prison in 10 years before this, I guess he could be 30. Anyway, the point is that there's no rush, and why rush? It's not like getting married somehow facilitates necessarily a deeper bond. You're just raising your risk. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with getting married right away. A lot of people do that. The pro, as opposed to the cons of getting married right away is sometimes it can make people feel more secure. Sometimes it can really demonstrate how dedicated you are to the relationship right away, and so you can just move on with the rest of your life and put that question behind you as like, well, are we going to get married? So there can be some benefit to that. But anyway, the mom has some good advice. And if I was the mom, I would say something like, from a differentiated point of view, of just like, look, son, I don't know you and Karine, the way that you know the two of you. I've only seen you over Skype together. I have no idea how well you gel or anything like that. So maybe you're really in love and maybe you have a great relationship. I don't know. So I just have to admit that I'm ignorant about that. But I will say that from my standpoint, I don't see why you're rushing things. You could take it slower, because I'm worried that something bad is going to happen. I'm worried for you. And you know how much I love you. You know how much I care about you. Now, you're free to make your own choice, and I will support you because I'm your mom and you're an old enough man. You can make your own choices. But I'll just say I would be able to sleep better at night if you gave it another year. So that's a more differentiated point of view, right? It's taking ownership of your feelings. It's not accusing. They seem to have a good enough relationship, and it seems to be going well enough. But she's saying some things in there that are, I think kind of hurtful. You don't know her, those kinds of statements, which I don't think is necessarily true. I mean, I guess maybe it is true. Maybe he barely does know her. But at the very least, I don't think it's going to go over well with him.
What do you think, Paul? Do you think it's a good idea?
Me and my mother have a very close relationship, and her opinion is very important to me. It's going to be hard to go ahead with the wedding without her blessing.
You have to use an app to communicate.
Yeah, the language barrier, the distance, everything.
I said this before in an earlier episode, that just because you don't speak each other's language doesn't mean you can't fall in love and have a wonderful relationship. I've seen that happen before with some people. It might seem odd. How do you fall in love and sustain a relationship with needing an interpreter to be able to communicate with each other? I've seen it happen. It's not ideal, but I've seen it happen. It's not impossible.
Do you have any trust issues anymore?
Yeah, we still got the trust issues every now and again.
So why are you rushed? What's the point? Tell me. I mean, I don't understand still.
So it's a great question. What's the point? Why rush things?
I got a very limited amount of time to make a decision this time. My visa is limited. My marriage license is limited.
All right. I always forget that. That's the whole premise of this show, right? Is that they don't live in the same country. And so if they want to have a relationship and they want to live in the same place, i.e. the United States, they have to get married so they can get a visa. There's a whole process that you have to get the ball rolling. And if you wait another year, then it pushes everything back. Like if you wait a year to get married, it could push back a number of years after that before you can actually live together in the United States. And so that's why they rush things, I suppose. I suppose that's a factor, but is it a reason enough to just blindly jump off the cliff? I don't know.
When did your visa expire?
90 days. It's really hard to hear my mother is not fully supportive of my choices. I think that deep down, mother is upset that she won't be at the wedding. And I really feel bad about that. I feel like complete crap that I didn't set up an option where my parents could be there. So another thing I want to talk to you about, Karine has been really talking about it, and she really wants to have a baby.
No. You're not ready.
Okay, so this is starting to go into Nicole and her mother territory of just these statements that these parents will say, like, nope, no, you're not having kids, you're not ready. Now, again, as an audience member, we might agree with that, but that's not how you treat an adult man, to just be like, no, you're not having kids. It's not usually helpful. It's more helpful to own your feelings and say, okay, when I hear that, I'm terrified. I worry that the two of you don't know what you're getting into. You're both very young. You just met. And it seems very fast to me. And I could see it going well because you're a lovely person and Karine seems like a lovely person. So I could see it going well. But I could also see it being disastrous. All these other scenarios that could possibly happen. You don't know her. You get divorced. She moves back to Brazil and you never see your child again. All these scenarios that will not benefit from the fact that you don't have time and you're rushing things. If you gave it more time and 5 years down the line and you had a lot of trust and a track record as a couple, then I would be less scared. But I do not have the right to tell you how to live your life. I'm just telling you as a mom how I would be concerned. Now, I would be a grandmother, and so I have some rights to some feelings, but this is your decision, and you have the right to make it, and I'll support whatever you decide to do. But I just have to say, I have big time worries about that. It's a more differentiated I position way of saying it. What the mom is saying is just, nope, that's not going to happen. Now, the difference between Nicole and her mom is Nicole's mom seemed to very much give off a domineering vibe. And I don't mean domineering as in like domestic violence or something. I just mean emotionally domineering. A very top-down way of talking to Nicole. And Nicole would exhibit this very subservient or incompetent vibe whenever she was around her mom that she didn't always exhibit with other people. This mom doesn't seem to do that. But this is the first time we've seen them enter into a conversation like this, so I don't know. But the mom doesn't seem to be having that dominant vibe with him. They seem to be on equal grounds for the most part. So, I don't know. Let's continue watching.
Has been really talking about it, and she really wants to have a baby.
No. You're not ready. I think a wedding was already way too much to accept. If you say have a baby, I don't think that's a good idea. You have to be responsible and be able to take care of yourself and prove it, Brandy is very young, and she's got plenty of time to want to have a baby later on, but you need to get to know each other first. And your income's not coming in right now. If you have a wife, you have to have steady income.
So she's making good points, and I wonder how he's taking it. The fact that she's not exhibiting my corny way of talking doesn't necessarily mean that he's not receiving it in a healthy way. So maybe he's receiving it in a healthy way. Like he's like, yeah, you know what? She makes some good points there. I don't feel disrespected. I don't feel like she's talking down to me. So I don't know. We'll find out.
You're going to be moving, and you're going to have a place to live, and then put a baby in it? That's expensive, too. Very expensive. There's a lot of things to think about.
I know.
It's not like a fairy tale story,
My mom's really got me thinking. I really need to make sure that I can take care of myself and that we're going to be financially stable and ready to do this. I've got to really consider these things.
So interesting. What we have here is a classic triangle in the Bohemian theory sense, where the mom does not want him to get married right away and does not want him to have kids right away. Karine wants to get married right away and she wants to have kids right away. Paul is stuck in the middle. So there's kind of a conflict between mom and wife, and Paul is now seemingly stuck in the middle. Because of Paul's lack of differentiation, he's easily swayed by whoever he's talking to. When Karine is present, he's like, yeah, let's get married, let's have kids. I want to please you. When mom is bringing up all these counterpoints, he's starting to be like, oh, well, maybe she's right. Now, there's nothing wrong with having debates and with having some ambivalence and changing your mind over time when you're talking to other people. But I wonder if Paul actually has a hard time connecting with, what do I want in this situation? What are my goals? Let's insert that into the equation as well. I don't know. We haven't really seen evidence of that, but maybe it's down there. Let's find out.
I hope I don't make a huge mistake doing this.
I hope you pray to make the right choice. So really think about it. Okay?
Okay.
Love you very much.
All right, love you very much. Bye.
All right, love you too.
Love you too.
Bye.
Love you too. All right, bye.
Eventually.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me out there. If you haven't subscribed yet, that'd be cool. If you haven't liked this video and you like it intellectually, you could like it physically by hitting the thumbs up button. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.